Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. We like to bring you guests from all around this wide brown land. So we are today visiting with a black belt from Queensland. He trains at Southside MMA. He's someone that I met when I went up to the Queensland State Championships earlier this year, and then I met him again at the Pan Packs recently. Looking forward to getting to know him quite a bit more. He is Dave Kapa. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome to have you on.
Kiwi.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Dave and I were just talking about this actually. So yet again, we're outnumbering you. So tell us a little bit about.
Joined, Brent. We've had so many. I didn't know there were so many living among us. You know, why so many Kiwis all of a sudden?
Just sneak in, you know, like we're trying to bring the culture of Australia up, you know. So that's why the Kiwis are coming over.
How long have you been here, Dave? When did you?
I'll get bashed for that.
Yeah, I was explaining before I first came over, I think 2009, and we stayed for a couple of years, but then we had our son and we thought we might raise him back home, and then going home we just realized how cold it was and everything, and so we just came back across. This time I've been here since 2014.
Yeah.
What part of
was
New
the
Zealand
first time in Queensland as well?
So my Māori side comes from the far north, place called Kiwi, but I was born in Gisborne on the east coast, down the south there, but basically born and raised on the north shore of Auckland, place called Devonport. Yeah.
Military base there, or just in the area?
Sorry, mate?
Were you part of the Air Force base? Was like family in the military there, or because they've got the Devonport Air Force, right?
Yeah, that's right. Devonport's the base of the Navy for New Zealand.
Navy, that's right. So, yeah.
When I grew up, Devonport was a proper Navy town. A lot of Māori families in there. Way more gentrified now. It's pretty expensive to live there, and probably not dissimilar to what Manly is to Sydney, Devonport to Auckland.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So were you in Queensland previously when you came in 2009? Or
yeah. My wife grew up here. She was raised in Kira. Her brother was one of the coolie kids. His name's Dean Morrison. He's one of the pro surfers of that era. And so when we came across, we stayed with him and got to know the community pretty well. Love it here.
Yeah. It's a big change from Queensland to New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is pretty popular. As I understand it, you know, ronga mamau is the Māori equivalent of the grappling arts, and they used to practice that. You know, it's linked to the gods. They used to practice mamau, as I understand it, in a octagon. So it's I think pretty popular, and you know, comes quite naturally to Māori.
Well, I've never heard of that at all, so I'm going to have to research that. That sounds amazing. Is that so? Did you train that, or is that still going now, or was that like a Māori thing back in the day?
It's more of a thing that I've come to learn about since practicing jiu-jitsu. I was, you know, a lot of my mates, a lot of the Māori that come through the school, they pick it up really quick, and I assumed that it had something to do with, you know, being in our blood or something. Hard to move backwards, circle really, really smooth, and a lot of fast twitch muscle. So, I mean, that explains the rugby stuff, but I just had an inkling that it would help with jiu-jitsu.
Speaking of the rugby stuff, my husband has asked me to ask you if you prefer a bone-crunching tackle by a forward or a winger scoring in the corner.
Oh, bone crunching all the way. I mean, wingers are just there to score when we tell them to. I don't really care what the wingers do, to be honest.
Feel like that.
Spoken like a true forward.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I think they say the forwards determine whether you win the game. The backs decide by how much.
That makes sense, actually. Were you, when you were in New Zealand, so pre-2009, were you training jiu-jitsu then?
No. If anything, I was the opposite of training jiu-jitsu, just corporate lawyer, trying my best to just sort of navigate, practice and playing the odd game of rugby here and there. I think probably, I'd say by 2009, I was as close to finishing playing proper rugby as I was going to get. Really just hanging out with the boys playing rugby, trying not to get a career-ending injury. I didn't pick up jiu-jitsu until 2015.
So that was here in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. My dad had passed, and it's just had a bit of a loose end. And my wife actually suggested, she was training at a place called Holistica, and next door there was a jiu-jitsu school. It's Flow Martial Arts under Paolo Polomino. Yep. And she just suggested go along and see what you can get up to, and fell in love with it.
Had you done any martial arts prior to that when you were younger?
No, I hadn't. My dad, I remember he was, and I think it's a generational thing. My dad was a karate guy, like he had some old karate belts hanging up somewhere, I remember as a kid. But growing up, we were mainly rugby players in New Zealand. That you sort of, anytime you left the house, you'd take a rugby ball or a guitar, and that would be how you'd carry on until your mum told you to come home.
It's a cool childhood, isn't it, doing that?
Oh, it's so good. And, we weren't allowed in the house in the daytime. And these days you've got to kick them out. It's such a strange development.
I think like we've had a few rugby league guys come in, and we've had a couple from the Melbourne Storm sort of come through. Mate, the speed that these guys move at, like the difference in somebody I think who's played those contact sports, for me, the way that they can put their bodies in different positions. I think there's a couple of sports that transfer beautifully to jiu-jitsu. I think rugby or rugby league is one. I mean, obviously wrestling, but also I think gymnastics is another one, where people just know how to move their bodies. And I think in regards to, and I guess AFL too, I'm not really across AFL as much, but for me, that rugby side of it, that used to physical contact and those sorts of things, it just flows perfectly into jiu-jitsu, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. The bit I miss is the team element. Rugby, you never really, nobody on your team makes a mistake that's not that's wholly on them, and it is quite a lonely experience, particularly if you choose to compete. Just getting out there and hearing Kombacha that's on. As much as possible, I've tried to lean into the team side of everything that goes on. But you're right, in terms of the base athletic skills, contact sports like rugby, I think, give you that omni athletic ability to be explosive and have a little bit of ticker to spare when it counts.
Dave, I wanted to ask you as well about, you mentioned being a corporate lawyer. I mean, we have people from all walks of life, I guess, doing jiu-jitsu, but how does that go for you? That world is in some ways quite different to the grappling arts. So how do your colleagues and your peers at work kind of take what you do in your free time? How's that perceived?
Yeah, I think it's always just a nice extra. It's just a little bit of an extra hobby that we like to chat about. But I think on a deeper level, there's a lot of synergies between, practicing in a specialty field like law and jiu-jitsu, insofar as, the more senior you are, you start to see patterns and you start to adopt strategy, and, you're really reading problems on the fly, and you get really good at solving problems quickly based on your previous experiences with a similar problem.
Yes.
Yeah, do you then take that into different aspects of learning, Dave? So, for instance, with law, you start sort of broad, and then you kind of bring the field in a wee bit. As with jiu-jitsu, do you have you branched out into have you branched that sort of learning curve into other things? So, like you spoke about playing guitar or something like that when you're a kid, like learning is learning, right? But becoming good at learning can be a hard thing.
Yep. I mean, it starts by, I think, having a bit of a desire for where you want to go with the thing. Guitar's a great example. You can do a lot with 3 chords. Especially from about 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. I think you can make a living on 3 chords. But you're right.
Make some friends
in practice. Yeah, that's right. In practice, I started as in one of the top tier big commercial firms, and the specialty was energy and resources. The big commercial shopping center stuff, and I decided over time that I would specialize in intellectual property and be more of a niche guy and be in private practice. I'm also find myself advising as a general counsel, more commercial advice than for instance, just being a lawyer in one of those big top tier firms.
You talked about playing guitar. Let me just share this. I've just found this on your social media. People that are just listening. Got the call up to play / sing a few songs to the inaugural, how do I pronounce it? Lollapalooza, our friend's gig last night. Jumped at the chance to do something new and outside my comfort zone. Cool to tick performing off the bucket list. So tell us about that. Like what?
Yeah, I came across this idea of the opsimath at the beginning of the year, and a few of us, a few of the boys, we just challenged ourselves to, an opsimath essentially is somebody that picks up new things late in life. It's that idea of continual learning, and I guess the ultimate way to learn, as we probably know all too well with jiu-jitsu, is to get out there and perform, get out there and get on the stage and put it on the line. So, when something like that comes up, it is scary, especially when I really don't know a whole heap of drums or anything. But, the opportunity to do those things, it's what makes life sweet.
So what age did you start playing guitar? Like, so obviously this is something, is this something through the family?
I mean, I always used to go to sleep listening to my dad playing the guitar. But, like my dad, I've never been taught how to play. We just used to listen to the radio and try and make the strings make the same noises. So I can't read music, but I can read when the letters, the chords are on top of the lyrics. So, you just try and make the right sounds. We grew up in an Anglican household, so a lot of singing. A lot of Maori Anglican families would be, singing a lot on the Sunday, but whenever we'd get together, a lot of speeches and more singing and harmonies. And I think for me, music's more the love of singing and harmonies than the guitar per se.
For all the guys from New Zealand who might be listening, or people who were around in the 80s, there was a New Zealand band called Herbs, who was a Māori band. And I remember my parents coming home one night, and they had a couple of new friends who I hadn't seen before, and they were all sitting in the lounge and singing and this sort of stuff, and like same sort of thing, mates sitting around, they're having a few drinks and playing guitar. Kids get sent to bed at whatever time, and got up the next day, and my parents were like, I'm like, oh, who were these guys? And they're like, oh, it was one of the guys from Herbs. And
wow.
I have no idea if that was true, because they told like a lot of stories, right, as parents tend to do. But I think it was one of the guys from Herbs. Like for me, growing up in South Auckland, that sort of area, those guys were around. So, the childhood with the guitars and the singing, mate, it's definitely prominent for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that sound like they're from Herbs, and there's a lot of Herb. So, I actually love it, and that's one of the things that really gets me when I go home and you hear the same hymns and you hear people singing, and you can actually make out the ones that have passed. You can hear the harmonies that aren't there.
Yeah.
And it's the only time that it really hits me how much you miss the people that have passed when you don't hear their harmony anymore.
Big.
Yeah. And Dave, so you've come into jiu-jitsu, I guess, if you don't mind me saying, a little bit at a later age than maybe some other people.
Yeah, I don't mind at all.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit about that? Like, you are somewhat of a bigger guy, so it's a little bit easier for you maybe on the body than some other people. But how was that for you, especially in the early days, coming on to a new activity like jiu-jitsu with a few more years under your belt than maybe some other people?
Yeah, I think, you come to things at the time you're ready for them. I would have loved to have, cross-pollinated jiu-jitsu with rugby when I was competitive at rugby. It wasn't to be, but I'm so glad that I found it on the back end of being a rugby player, because, as you'd know, Brent, the rugby is very big on explosive, direct motion. There's not a lot of linear work going on, and I found that right at the end, everything was almost like fused straight. So I was really powerful going up and down or straight ahead. I could do that quite fast. But the second anything was turned or taken on a sharp pivot, my ligaments weren't really there. And jiu-jitsu, just working with Paolo at the start, a lot of just opening up the hips and getting the guard work really helped me as not an athlete, but just helped future-proof what my body was up to. Because, I see a lot of the guys that stopped rugby and then just stopped. And, we talk about this a lot. You either wear out or you rust out. And I feel like as soon as they finish rugby, they just rusted out, literally just fused themselves still.
Yeah, that's an awesome sort of way to put it. I know, for instance, Tana Umanga, who, for those who might not be aware, he was actually the All Black captain for a long time. I don't know if he took up jiu-jitsu during rugby or at the end of rugby. I'm not too sure. And he went over to World Masters. He won his division at brown belt. He's now a black belt. But it's the same sort of thing, like these guys who take up that they have been playing a sport at very good levels, and then they take up something like jiu-jitsu. They take to these things really quickly. But exactly what you're saying, the difference between someone like yourself or Tana Umanga, where now you've got to open up your hips and all those sorts of things. And then we talk to Adele Fornerino, who's like, I did this when I was 13, and my hips, because I've done this sport, super flexible, my hips go that way, So it's really interesting on what, as older people, when we start jiu-jitsu, what we need to put our bodies and train our bodies to be able to do.
Yep. And I also think it's very easy to talk about the physical things because, you stretch them and they get better. I think the real benefit is you've got an active mind that's solving problems, and you're able to compete, and you feel good about being a role model for the kids, and you really get, there's a whole heap of the work that quietens down the head noise, and I think that that was the real benefit. I mean, it's nice to have a body that can move around, but it's also it's such a blessing to have something to put my mind to when I'm not working.
Brentos mentioned World Masters. You've been to Masters, is that right, Dave?
Yeah, that's right. I went to World Masters last year in 23 as a brown belt.
Yeah.
That was August. Yeah, August of 23. I went into the Masters 3 ultra heavyweight bracket.
And how was the experience for you?
Yeah, it was brilliant. I've had a lot of fun competing in Australia, and I think other than Australia, I'd done Pan Am's once as a blue belt. I got silver at Pan Am's it must have been 2019.
Wow.
And then, we did the Tokyo thing like everyone else tends to want to do if they're looking at international comps and want their points. And so Masters was definitely on the list. And, you never know how long you're going to stay in your belt. And I was just thinking it'd be great to have a crack at it. So I was really lucky to have a good run getting ready for it. No injuries. Work was fine. And I think I got bronze in the tournament. Had a couple of really big matches in ultra heavyweight. I guess, not having an upper ceiling on what people can weigh, it was pretty incredible to come up against some of these guys that must have been, somewhere in that 150 kilo range. Amazing specimens, and just really quite a difficult problem to solve on the fly.
Yeah, it's a cool tournament.
Don't you do super heavy now, Dave?
I still choose to compete in ultra. Yeah, I just find there's a sweet spot in ultra, somewhere between 108 and 112, where you're still really explosive and mobile, but you tend to still have enough of an engine, particularly at Masters, to be active the whole time. The idea of a 10-minute match freaks me out a bit.
It freaks me out too. It's one of the benefits of Masters. I keep saying this. and as Kim and I have said, like 5 minutes is awesome if you're on top and you're winning. But if you're down by 2 points and somebody passes your guard, 5 minutes is not long enough. You're like, I need more.
Yeah. I feel like I've got 5 minutes and 10 seconds worth of jiu-jitsu. And and I just do my best to not have to use that much of it at all.
So tell us about your competition sort of progression, like your first competitions, and then you sort of mentioned Tokyo or the Asian Open, I suppose it might have been. Like, give us a rundown on what you've done and where you've been. I find those sorts of things fascinating.
Yeah, I think what's different about me, and I think this is probably something worth talking about, is getting ready for Pan Am's as a blue belt. I was going in to do a physical just to get checked up to see if I would, if there's any tweaks I could make to get the performance right. My dad passed away with they called it a heart attack, but it's basically his ascending aorta was too big and it dissected. And, when that happens, it's no good. The heart needs to be able to pump. And when that dissects, it floods and you can't, internal bleeding. It turned out that I had the same thing.
Is that the one they call the Widowmaker? Do you know?
Well, yeah, I think in practice that's what it does. I've never heard it being called that. It's the ascending aorta.
I think I could be.
So
I could be wrong. But I've heard that something like that. It's one of those ones when that dissects, there's very little you can do about it. I could be wrong though.
yeah, no, you're right. And over half don't make it to the hospital at that point, and the ones that do don't have a good show of it. It just puts the heart under a lot of trauma. So
a bulge or weakening in the top part of the aorta, the body's main artery. It's life-threatening condition that can cause serious complication if left untreated.
Yeah. So we found out about that, and I basically just turned up to this first cardiologist, and he said, "Look, whatever you're doing, I need you to stop it. We're going to need to. This is the aorta, and it just sort of sits over the heart, and we're going to have to cut this out of you and put like a pig's one or a horse's one or something in there, and then stitch it up and see how you go. But you'll be on blood thinners for the rest of your life, and you can't do any contact sport, And I was just getting ready to do Pan Ams, not in amazing shape, but getting ready for a full season, and just got told on the spot that I wouldn't be able to do it, and that was pretty tough to take. I remember sitting in the car park, just a little bit lost, because I'd found something I love to do. I'd had a measure of success in it. I told a lot of people that I'm going to do something with it, and then this overweight cardiologist was telling me I couldn't do anything with my body anymore, which was pretty wild. My wife ended up finding this procedure up in Brisbane. It's called it's PARS procedure, PEARS, personalized external aorta repair. That's the acronym. And instead of cutting that pipe out, they took a scan of my heart, sent it to London, made a new coating on a 3D printer, flew it in, and just wrapped it. So they still had to do open heart surgery. You could probably see the scar. But instead of cutting the pipe out and taking my heart out and having to do things, they just wrapped that pipe. And 11 weeks after that, I was in Hawaii at Naga, and I just wanted to see if I could still compete. And I ended up winning the expert level Hawaiian Naga. So, and that was 11 weeks after open heart surgery, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's phenomenal, Dave.
But in terms of Pan Ams, he told me I wouldn't be able to do anything anymore, but I was already booked to go like a week later. So flew to America, did this tournament, and it was sort of like, it felt like my swan song, because I'd have to go and have the surgery and that would be it. So I was really stoked to get silver there. And then it turns out that I'd be able to continue. So every time I take to the comp mat, I'm always just that little bit more grateful for the moments, because I remember the consult with the cardiologist telling me I'd never be able to do it ever again.
That's actually really similar to a story we just had a guest on recently, Trail Dowie, had a similar kind of heart issue that kind of along the same lines was told, basically you're about to die sort of thing, and it's a very similar outlook on his grappling as well. Just, I guess it just changes things for you entirely there in terms of gratitude for what you've got.
Yeah, as soon as somebody is telling you that it's going to get taken away, you start to get very, very grateful for any little moment you can have while you still got things.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, those of us that have been training for that little bit longer, we all had that when we could come back and train after COVID, right? Like this thing that we love and enjoy doing, and we've got, some of our best friends and people that we love and care about, and then we can't see them, let alone train, and then all of a sudden, okay, you're allowed back, like that. The gratefulness of like, now I'm back and now I'm training, like for you, like Like it's the same feeling, right? Like to be able to continue to do what you do now, and obviously to get to black belt through that. Do you have any restrictions put on you now, Dave, or like you're just good to go?
Yeah, I'm not a very good patient, and I don't handle restrictions very well. So
that's why you became a lawyer.
I still remember in the hospital they were saying, "Oh, look, you're going to need to take these painkillers, push this button." And I was always a bit scared that the kids might come in and see me all drooling with the painkillers. So I didn't take any killers, and they were saying, "Well, look, you're going to need to because we need your lungs to be able to. You need to blow this asthma thing a certain level, or else your lungs won't repair." And so I was just making sure that I could make that level the whole time. So anytime I'm given, a restriction, I'm always trying to, and my wife hates it, so I shouldn't brag about it. But I'm always trying to, get rid of any of these restrictions. I won't take drugs that are anything that could get me hooked. It's not my thing.
Brent, you mentioned about COVID and like not seeing our friends and stuff, but in some ways it was a good thing because that was one of the main reasons why we started the Roll or Die podcast, so that we could keep in touch with each other through the lockdown when we were, also unable to contact each other.
So
good things.
For all the bad, there's definitely some good, right? For all the bad, there's definitely some good.
Yeah,
and I think the ultimate benefit of all of that carry on is that we know that we won't sleepwalk into that sort of a situation anymore. I think as a community, that was such a wild time, and I don't think those hard fought freedoms will be surrendered as quickly in the future.
Yeah, we were down here in Melbourne. You at least were in Queensland, a little bit less affected than us, I believe. It was a long couple of years for us. And Dave, tell us a little bit as well about Southside, where you train now. So that's one of probably the biggest academies in Queensland, certainly on the Gold Coast. It's got some amazing leaders. What can you tell us about that academy?
Yeah, I came to Southside as a purple belt. I and I go to great pains to say it wasn't about anything to do with my other academy. Flow was a great academy. At the time, I was looking for some bigger bodies to work with, and being an ultra heavyweight, it's quite rare to, in those days in particular, it's quite rare to get your hands on the bigger crew. And, when you compete, you really don't want to get surprised by, elements that you could control. So I needed to get access to the bigger guys. And, I fell in love with Southside from the time I got there. Just such a healthy environment for, the study of the technical elements. And Vicente and Sarah have done a really great job at creating a community based around, elements of respect and excellence. And there's also, it's a massive platform. You can't deny that. There's a whole, at any given time, particularly Tuesday, Thursday, advanced class, we could get 20 plus black belts on the mat just turning up to train. And a lot of schools couldn't pull that together on a reunion. It's pretty cool to just randomly be able to train with all sorts of different flavors of jiu-jitsu at a high level. So, incredible platform.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the coaches there, mate. So VC is obviously a beast. So tell us a little bit about how the structure of classes look and those sorts of things too.
Yeah, so we have different scales classes, and we've recently moved, only a year ago into a much bigger facility. There's an upstairs mezzanine that they run some of the beginners classes for, I think they were saying it's people up to 12 classes, brand new people. We also run a bit of a wrestling element up there with Coach Sam. Vicente takes the advanced classes on Tuesday, Thursday, and that if you're going to pop in, those would be the classes, in my opinion. You just get a really good sense for that particular brand and style of jiu-jitsu. There's a comp class on Saturdays too, which is not too shabby. But the lunchtime classes have a bunch of different coaches. I take one of the morning classes, 6 a.m. Thursdays. My classes are more around, skills, drills, acquisition, that sort of stuff. I like to roll as hard as anyone else. It's my style, but I feel like the cerebral elements, you really do want to get repetitions on particular systems.
I love the morning classes. It's good to find a fellow morning person. The academy I'm at now, we don't have really the morning classes, and I'm not sure we will for some time. Our coach isn't a morning person, but it's just a way different sort of vibe in the morning, isn't it? I really recommend it, especially for people that are maybe a little bit older. Nothing against the evening classes, but I mean they're a lot younger generally. I find people in the evenings, and it sharpens your game, no doubt. But I don't know. To me, I reckon if you want to keep doing this sport into your 70s and 80s, the morning classes are probably a good place to go. Would you say? Like this, the pace is just a little bit less, a bit more gentle on the body.
Yeah, I think as you as you get a little bit older too, the mornings are the only time that can't get taken away from you. If you're disciplined, we are privileged on the Gold Coast here to have warm days, so I can imagine, getting up, trying to get into the city in Melbourne to try to make a 5 a.m. class or whatever it is, would be a mission in winter. On the Gold Coast here, it's a lot easier. If anything, it's too hot. We have this big shed door, and by about 7 a.m. in the morning in Queensland, it's too hot to have it up. So we are pretty privileged, but definitely if you've got goals and you're looking to improve, you can't beat getting up and getting, guaranteed getting your session in before work, because anything could happen. Kids might need you to be somewhere, or your wife has other plans for you in the evening, and you can't go, and you just end up being a little bit grumpy, I think, if you are hanging your hat on an evening class and you can't get there.
Yeah, for sure. And the good thing too, in the morning,
you wake up earlier.
That's right.
All it comes down to is whether you want to get up. You just set the alarm. The alarm will turn itself on. It's just whether you want it or not. Whereas
and it's beautiful. It means you're in a great mood for the whole day. Well, that's how I was when I done it. Like, it just sets you up for the whole day. So highly recommend people go to a morning class if they can, especially those people that say they don't have time to train. Like, come on, just get up earlier and do it there. So
I
hear you. I'm converted.
Just say, like, it's just the discipline, right? It's just that discipline of turn the alarm off and get out of bed. Like, don't turn the alarm off and like chill for 3 minutes. It's like alarm up. If you start to do that, I wouldn't say I'm the most disciplined person, but in saying that, I have my jiu-jitsu schedule in my diary, and it just doesn't change, so there are definitely aspects to me being disciplined and doing that. I've spent my time getting up at 4:45 though, so for work. I don't think I'll be doing that, voluntarily for a while.
I find it really helps to, have to have made a promise to somebody else as well. I think that makes a big difference. If you're not keen on getting up for morning class, organise to have someone pick you up or go and pick them up, because I guarantee that'll motivate you to make it happen, because you don't want another person just waiting on you.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, Dave, tell us a little bit about your black belt. So you got it sort of this time last year, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. And, again, we talk about that culture and platform. VC pulls everybody in at the end of the year, and our final grading is just black belts. And everybody from all the different affiliations turns up. It's this massive thing. And he'd set up this red carpet down the middle of the gym, and the head black belts are at the front, and they call you up, and it's such a cool vibe.
Wow, I love that idea of a red carpet. I think more academies should do that. That's fantastic.
I saw some of the guys up at Legacy Sunshine Coast did it recently as well. I think it's just such a special occasion, and it's the last of the belts that as you grow through, and you never really picture yourself being one, and then you just get woken up out of this dream, and they're calling your name and telling you to go and be this thing, and you don't know if you're ready. But I've never really spent much of my time worrying about whether I'm ready or not. I've got so many other things to play catch up on in terms of my game and style and all the different elements that come with doing jiu-jitsu. I've never really been too fussed about the timing of recognition.
You could see the joy on your face when you spoke about that, actually, like, the red carpet and everybody lining up. So on the day, are you rolling? Are you demonstrating techniques, or has that all just been done and this is more just a celebration?
Yeah, I think, as I understand it anyway, I think by the time you're invited to become a black belt, I don't think there's any doubt or any need to show a particular technique, unlike how they might do it in Taekwondo or something. I feel like at Southside, it's a pretty common sense call by the time people are ready to make their belts. And I thought that the just being asked to come up individually and say what you need to say and thank who you need to thank, it's just such a cool part of our sport. And it's a nice reminder that there was a time when you were the guy at the end of the line, and that was something that I talked about as well at the time. I remember what I was looking for when I started jiu-jitsu was a space to be the most junior person in the room. And I was actually, you find you're being asked to be senior at everything and give people advice all the time and mentor junior lawyers, or be the old guy for the new guy that's made the team. And it was pretty cool at whatever I would have been, late 30s, to be standing behind a kid that's got a blue belt on, and just be this brand new beginner with open eyes. And I do miss that. I'd love to maybe find another room where I could be that guy again. It's such a cool feeling.
I actually think that's super important, and it is literally one of the reasons that I started jiu-jitsu. Is the same sort of thing. So in profession that I had as a chef, I worked at good places. I was a higher, worked as a head chef, etc. And then my current profession as a dog trainer, people sort of know our business. So to be that person at the bottom where you don't know anything. What was the word that you used earlier, Dave, about being an old guy and learning?
Yeah, opsimath. OPSIMATH.
I love it.
Awesome.
That's brilliant. And the feeling of that, of learning a brand new skill, being the person at the bottom of the rung of the ladder, I think it is such an important thing for us to go through continually. I really do.
Well, I think that it's, the reason that they mention the opsimath being someone that does that later in life is because I think the pursuit of new knowledge later in life keeps you young.
Yeah. Love it.
That's fantastic. I think that's probably a really nice place to wind it up, Dave. Thank you so much for giving up your time. We had a few goes at finding a mutually suitable time, and we really know how busy you are. We really appreciate you making the time for this, and it's been great to get to know you a bit better, and looking forward to seeing you on that competition circuit where us older masters are still doing our thing, hopefully for many more years to come.
Look,
did you
it's been great chatting. You guys, thank you for having me. I've seen the podcast before, and I've got the T-shirt coming, I'm sure. So, I'm looking forward to watching these things as you keep going.
You might have it by the time this episode comes out in a couple of weeks. Yeah, T-shirts are on the way. So,
awesome.
Brentos, did you want to do the wrap-up?
Yeah, why not? Dave, thank you for coming on, mate. We really appreciate it. It's nice to hear a bit of your story. I know that your gym up there welcomes people. So if you are up in that Brisbane or Gold Coast area, then definitely get along. It is an awesome gym, and all the people I've met from the gym have all been super welcoming and absolute beasts on the mat too. So get along to the gym if you can. In regards to the Roll or Die podcast, guys, thank you for sharing our posts. Thanks for sharing our podcast. It seems like it's growing a little bit each time, so we really appreciate that. I think we'll leave it there. The T-shirts may have sold out. I don't know. You might have to jump on and get one. Remember, as we say, it's that extra stripe that if you need it, buy one for your coach. I'm sure that's worth a stripe. Tell your friends about the podcast. Like, rate, and share it. That sort of helps us grow what we are trying to do. And then the days that we want some of the massive names, there'll be, lots of followers, and they'll want to jump on with us too. But we'll leave it there. Thanks, Kim, as always, doing the research, bringing the cool stuff up. Thank you, Dave. And again, mate, really appreciate your time. Awesome to have you on. All the best going forward. And everybody else, we'll see you around the gym really soon.